Hello everyone, so here is Beyond Replication and this is the closing of 2025. We also will be recording a video where we'll be talking about our ideas for 2026, I suppose. No predictions, just diving into the energy of the astrology and what we are energetically tapping into intuitively. So we'll be dissecting that in the next video, which will be probably released just before the end of the year, but this one is more focused on how did we get to this point. We are recording this right before the new moon in Sagittarius and also the solstice entering us into the final cardinal season of this astrological year and obviously final few days of this calendar year. And before I dive deeper into the topic we're going to be talking about, I would like to also let everybody know that as of today, solstice, when I'm releasing this, where we are releasing this, we are running 25% off sale on all our offerings. You can book the readings with either I or Aaron, or with both of us if you would like the alchemical metamorphosis process. And also Aaron will be introducing his new service, which is now listed on my website as well, so you can find all the info on moonlightsoul369.com. So yeah, we're going to be diving into how these past 12 months showed up in our life with everything that's been going on astrologically and all the new energies and how we can potentially connect that to our personal experience.
Yeah, and very well stated. This is the ending of the wood snake, well, 2025, but we're coming into the closing chapter for this wood snake here. And a lot of this year was about transformation, transmutation, and transformation, and next year will be more about the transformation to transcendence. And so a lot of the process of the wood snake here has been internalized emotional circuits or loops or cycles within us coming up to the surface so that we can bring them to the light of new day, so that we can peel back the layers and see more of exactly what those were about. We can see some of them were illusion, some were delusion, but mostly they're just progressions and cycles, understanding that you aren't just one thing. A diagnosis is not a cast, static, set truth. It's about a process of unfoldment. And it's about taking ownership of what that is, and if you're going to make mistakes, doing them consciously, trying to learn in the process, not living in emotional circuit loops where you're afraid of outcomes, or this happens so this always is going to happen, or I don't want to hurt or offend this person or these people, or this system or this institution or these obligations. It was about understanding exactly what those were and moving consciously forward, at least for me.
Yeah, and also alongside with the wood snake, we were in the year 9, which is all perfect because 9 numerologically is the number of endings. We are just about to enter into year number 10, which simplifies to number 1, but actually contains the 0, which is the infinite of what it could be, what it could become. So this whole year brought things that we needed to shed, that we needed to strip because the skin became too tight, especially since Jupiter moved into the sign of Cancer. So we had that since springtime, and prior to that Jupiter in Gemini brought us all the dualities, and we entered this year 2025 with the moon, with the lunar node still in the sign of Libra and Aries. The North Node was still in the sign of Aries, then the Anaretics, the 0 degree in January, and then we switched into this Pisces Virgo axis as of January 11th. So this is where it really kicked off for us, where all the lived experience of the previous, this lifetime, past lifetimes, generations prior to us, and everything that ever happened on this planet started really becoming very conscious in our lives, especially with regards to what is a good fit and what we wish to take with us into these next timelines, into these next cycles that are starting from 2026, and what not. And also with Neptune moving into the sign of Aries for the first time right after the final eclipse in Aries in March, which was very significant time for Aaron and I when we had our first medicinal experience. And then simultaneously Saturn moved into the sign of Aries a few months later in May, and then we had this Uranus ingression into the sign of Gemini in July, and this is where we started interacting with the old energies and new energies simultaneously, like the past and the future where are really present, and it's still a continuous process. So a lot of things for us, and I'm sure for everybody else, have been coming to the surface, but also clashing in our present moment, I feel.
Yeah, it's through, there's an old adage, someone I used to work with, shout out to Chuck, he would say, you can either beg for forgiveness or ask for permission. And he always chose to beg for forgiveness, but I don't beg, I just say, hey, this is how it is. We live and learn in life. You got to live from the heart. If you can't live from the heart, you're never going to make mistakes. You're just going to be in the perfection of replication. And that's usually defined by our emotional snares, the wounds of the past, the expectations of others. And so to go along with what you're saying, it's about living consciously and choosing choices where it's not an easy choice. You don't exactly know the outcomes. You know what feels right, and you might make the wrong choices for the right reasons. And that's always preferable than just doing what's safe and sticking to the known, because you don't really grow in those processes. You become a martyr to your own victimhood, and you settle on virtue as an outcome rather than the ignorance of the fool to break free of chains and cycles that bound us to the past. And so, as you said, with all these planets moving, ingressing into these other signs, the nodal switch, you can really see how the Platonic years play out, how one energy from, say, Libra, the nodal process in Libra and Aries through into Virgo Pisces, we're starting to see the 12th house to 1st house dynamics, where the unconscious seeds of the past find the fertile soil of the here now. But can you recognize it in real time? Usually you can't. You have to get out of the mind to get into the feeling of it, get into the felt presence of the experience. And in that process, you hold the duality. We're moving with Jupiter from Gemini into Cancer. The unconscious program loops of our light and dark, the contrast of the past, the authority of our convictions, and it wasn't in the information or the experiences that we knew to be, it was what was beneath them, what was hidden within them. That's what we unfolded and what we're coming to grips with. That's what we're starting to understand in our emotional flows. And so you play the victim, you play the tyrant, the martyr, the savior, and you wear all these roles in order to understand that you're not just a static, you're a progression. You are dynamic life. And you have to be all things rather than one thing in order to truly grab your potential and see the freedom of life and liberate yourself from the binds of the past. And I feel 2025, if you didn't feel it this year, you will feel it next year as to why this was a liberating year for us.
Yeah, because it literally was like as I mentioned previously, Jupiter being a sign of Cancer is really making us to feel the tightness of the costume. Like, where do we feel restricted because we played small, because we over-identify, like you said, with any of these labels or all of them, because we all played all of them, like the martyr, savior, prosecutor, and the victim. We all play all of these roles in different relational dynamics with different people. Like in one situation, you might be the victim, somebody else might see you as a tyrant or something. So with this Jupiter being a sign of Cancer, of course, with the opposition Capricorn and Saturn moving from the Pisces to Aries back to Pisces, currently direct, it made us really aware that we're playing any of these roles. It doesn't matter, even if you're the savior, you know, so the good guy, the hero, right? It's restrictive. It's restrictive, and like from my personal experiences of also playing all these roles throughout my life, like I don't want to play any role. I don't want to play any role for anybody. I just want to be free to be me, and not to continuously have to go through this repetition of the old cycles, which I'm sure a lot of people can resonate with and identify as like, I feel stuck in a loop. Like, why is this happening over and over? It doesn't have to be the same person, doesn't have to be exactly the same situation, but the feeling is the same. And the feelings that are resurfacing through our lived life, there are emotions from the past that are unresolved. It's that South Node Virgo, North Node Pisces dynamic, and obviously Jupiter being the co-ruler of the North Node, Mercury being the, they call it the retrograde bitch, right? Because Mercury goes retrograde 4 times a year. But it's very important because Mercury makes us stop for a moment and gets us out of our like routine, our hamster wheel, and say like, okay, let's think about this again, let's go over this again. Is this really what it is? Because we are so easily programmable and programmed into continuously doing the same thing over and over and over again until they become so unbearable in our lived life, lived experience, which in also, you know, side note why things in a microcosm are getting so unbearable, because to remind us that, hey, listen, us as a humanity, as a human collective consciousness, we outgrown this way of experiencing reality, which is mostly through these 4 roles, which we named, that are the building structures of Piscean age, which we understand the totality of, but we are now ready to kind of move from. And that's where we at as a humanity. So I feel this year where this, like we had Pluto taster of Aquarius for 2 years between 2023, 2024, when it was the ingress, then return back to Capricorn, ingress back, then back into Capricorn, and as of November 2024, we have Pluto steady in Aquarius, and this year we had that forward, backward dance from Saturn, Neptune, and Uranus, right? So I feel this is like where everything that is no longer in resonance with the current version of yourself, which is ready to become the next version of yourself, expand into the next expression of your soul, has become unbearable throughout this year and throughout our lived life experiences.
Mm-hmm. Well said. And you can think of your sense of self like this being the 9 years you mentioned. 9 is the beginning of the end. It's the last number in the numerological system until you get to the master number concepts. But it is the ultimate yang, 9. It is a Martian number. It is Virgo, which is the fool's journey. It's realizing the processes of your experiences are leading you to the star, the source within yourself, the light of your own awareness. And you can think of the Mercury retrogrades, all retrogrades. There's a 3-ding process, you know, it reaches a point, it goes back over a point, and then it reaches it once more. So this is thrice great. This is Hermes thrice great. You know, 3rd time is a charm. This is, something happens, it's one thing, you go back over it, it becomes a maturation of what it was. It's like, now it's more of a complete understanding, and then you break through it. You either go through it, you go around it, or you go under, over, or you stay there and you keep processing what it is. You know, some of our cycles, our personal seasons, are longer than others, you know, so never feel bad about being stuck on anything. You know, there are deep dives in this world. You know, if you are stuck on something, you got to go all the way. That's all it means. And in that process, you become thrice great. You become aware. You're digging deep for a gnosis that only you will have the language for. And once you find it, the resonance of that understanding will reflect, and you will find the people, the situations, and the symbols in this reality which give you the feedback that says, okay, yeah, you're not alone. This is actually what's happening. You're growing. You're becoming something else. You're shedding what you thought you were and becoming what you might be. And with Prometheus, with Uranus, you know, the higher octave of Mercury, you know, you're bound to the knowledge. You know, the mountain of conviction is Capricorn. And we're bound to that knowledge through the emotional tethers, you know, and these vultures, the matrix, the people who are power players in this world who seek the iconic projection. They feed upon that. That's what we deny ourselves, and we feed into the system. So as this vulture devours the emotions, you feed this system that's just eating us alive, until you realize, like, okay, there is value within me. There is power within me. Knowledge is not static. You know, I'm not a tyrant. I'm not a caveman. I'm not a child of some broken father. You know, I'm actually a God in human form, but only until I can see that in this world and in other people. And it's a slow process, then you can't break these chains of knowledge. You know, and it's a trivialization first, because if knowledge never ends, then what good is it? You know, so you have to find the good. But you have to live from the center to find the good. Otherwise, you're just grasping you're trying to climb to the top of a tree in a hurricane. You know, and you don't know what branches are going to hold, so you got to get down to base, and that's within yourself, and bring that forward.
That's true. That's a good analogy, and it's perfect for the upcoming Chiron in Taurus. You need the keys within you in Taurus, in your foundation, in your roots. Yes, like with regards to where you came from, ancestor line, because usually we see roots as where did I come from, what are my roots. But actually your roots as your own, you are the tree. Where are your roots? You as your being, where are your roots? So I feel that will be the perfect like process of realizing throughout Chiron in Taurus, which we will start next year, and then obviously Chiron will go back briefly into Aries again before the end of next year. But all that says, I digress. It's really true that this year, and I mean you can say any year, you know, any year there is something going on. Like seriously, if you look at the history of humanity, it's just like the stories are repeating themselves. There's nothing new under the sun. You look back at like financial crisis, economic markets, you know, this going on, that natural disaster, that war. There's always something going on. Not to say that it's not heartbreaking, but you know, there is nothing new under the sun. The situations we've experienced this year, yes, we are more conscious about it because we are becoming more conscious overall, and the expression of the same thing is different, is newer, it puts on new costume, you know. So like you would say like, oh, okay, humanity evolved, we are not the same, and that's true, but some of the emotions we are processing are the same. They are just we are expressing and experiencing them through these new costumes, right? And that is the 21st century, whether you talk AI, whether you're talking about internet or whatever, doesn't matter. The costume is the same thing, you know, the costume is different, but the emotion behind it is the same, especially if it's an emotion that is connected to Piscean, you know, like the lack mentality, you know, fear, unworthiness, guilt, shame, jealousy, and all that, and it all stems from the Taurus. You know, how strong are your roots? How strong are your roots in yourself? Which is something that many of us, you know, I'm not saying lost, but didn't develop strong roots with regards to our own connectedness to ourselves since childhood, because your mother, father tells you these are the values, this is what we value in this family, this is how our ancestors survived. That's great, but now let's apply it to 21st century and everything else that's going on around you. Is this going to serve you, or is this going to restrict you? So this is you know, it's not like one size fits all and the one truth is forever the truth. No, Sagittarius is a mutable sign, and that's again something that we're becoming very conscious of with Jupiter in Cancer connected to every single nation, and ending this year with such new moon, you know, like go figure. But anyway, going back to the same topic, this year in particular with the South Node in Virgo, which is like, as Aaron said, and this is something that I feel deeply about Virgo archetype, the human hero's journey, the lived experience, and just like Aaron said, it gave you the opportunity to focus what is my star, because the Hermit in the card of Major Arcana holds the star, it holds the star in the little lantern, right? So through these processes that we've gone through this year, and many of them I'm sure challenging, because I mean, anyone you speak to can tell you what a difficult year this was because of this or this. And I don't think it was like really easy year for, maybe for some, you know, I'm not saying there are no exceptions to the rule, people who, you know, already probably a little bit further ahead along the game of the spiritual, mastering their thoughts and emotion and not being as impacted. But yeah, so this year really in a very conscious degree and quantity made us aware of these things from the past that are resurfacing, not necessarily comfortably, but for our greatest good, because these things are not coming with, because we can feel in how it makes us feel that this is not in resonance.
Yeah, well said. That's true. It's like, and everyone is in different stages, you know, and some people aren't here to be enlightened or to make major impacts for other people. They're here to impact their own life and impact maybe those matured expressions in psyche through their family lineage, you know. And we think of our bone, blood, flesh, you know, the ancestors, the DNA, but we don't really think of the psyche, the psychic DNA, you know, the resonance of the elements, of the cosmos, of conception itself. There's more than just this, you know. Pythagoras said it's better to be in resonance with brothers and sisters of spirit than of mere flesh and blood. And you can see the evidence for that everywhere you go. You know, people are locked into the polarities of their convictions. Friends, family, lovers, corporations, societies, governments. So it's like, where is the truth? You got to find what it is within you and bring that forward. And if everyone can do that, and they don't have to go all the way, just be in that spirit of this creative process, we meet common grounds. We see that the unity is in the diversity, and it's when we can find the diversity is actually a benefit, then we can actually see, well, what is the real foundational connection? What do we all share that's good for all of us? You know, if you think of like the dynamics which are arising through the caste system history right now, you know, they call it colonialism, but it's technocracy. You know, it's not specific to any ethnicity. What it is, it's a spirit and psyche which has evolved through thousands and thousands of years. And it's wore many masks of personas. And maybe these persona masks were ethnicities of different areas, but it's not a story that began and ends with one group. It's the story of humanity. We're cultivating the fire of human heritage here. So how can we see the value in what it is to be alive and find our unity in that? Rather than saying, you did this, you did that, this group's doing this group's doing that. It's like, what government actually represents you? You know, why do you give a shit what this government's pushing when they don't care about you? They don't care about anything but a bottom line. Who do they work for? What do they work for? It's power. You know, if you get to the core of money, it's about control. It's the greed of Mammoth is about controlling the resource. It's about bringing form into existence. And that whole energy is what the caste system has been cultivated through, and that has turned into the Abrahamic expression, which is this discordant father energy, which is pushing for the perfection of a replication which cannot be obtained, but through taking the purity of a resource, and the resource is us, and it's our intention and attention. So just know, you know, you can make good changes through culture, through society, but understand what game you're playing. What bricks are you paving this road to, and where is it going? You know, do you need to pave a road, or do you need to just forge your own and find the people of resonance who have broken free of this psychosis, which we have cultivated through time? For good reason, not just bad. And the Piscean age is a great teacher, just like culture. It's a good teacher. It's not your friend. And thinking hermetically, you know, we can take the complexity of existence and we can simplify it by cutting out a lot of things through defining ideas. The dynamic language of astrology is probably one of the best languages for this because it allows growth, whereas a lot of other systems, specifically modern science, cuts out the potentials unless it can be proven to the lowest common denominator. So it's like the Pisces to Taurus, you know, that's that sextile, that opening sextile. Pisces transforms through Libra. Taurus works through Libra, and this is an unconscious process of happening. You know, the first square from Taurus is the Leo. And Leo is the polarity of Aquarius, the age we're heading into. Aquarius is a 12th house energy coming into realization through Pisces, through the dream. So it's a wind carrying the scent of something new. So old it's new. So you can see that there's an engineering process if you can compassionate meaning into language. And there's also a reverse engineering process. If you don't have any more compassion to give to ideas or other people, then that's your signal to create. You know, this is your calling to be in Wu Wei, to be creative like the natural flow of existence itself. So there are many things happening, and you're going to be fluctuating between these things always. It's, can you compassionate the meaning? If you can't, then simplify your world, cut things out which are destroying your energy. It's like eating bad food, you know, you don't have enough energy to do normal things. Or if you're watching too much information, television or news, you don't have room for creation. You're just replicating these old emotions that need to be transformed.
Well, like you said, we are either consuming or creating. There is no other way, because you need to use your fire for something. You are either using it to digest, to consume, or you are using it to create. And yeah, just from what you said, because that is really much into where we're going in 2026, which we will be diving into in the next video. And I just, like, what just came to me while you were saying was that Chiron, technically moving into Taurus, will square Pluto. Like I believe it might be, I didn't check the dates, but it will be probably in 2027. And also we know Pluto's going to conjunct the North Node in 2027, and also Chiron will eventually, by the end of the lunar node being in Leo Aquarius, Chiron will become the skip step. It will square the lunar nodes, but this is all in the upcoming 2 years. It is not necessarily like going to be fully active 2026, but obviously with the new planetary placements we will start feeling it. So going back to 2025 and being the year of Hermit, you know, being the year where we were being invited, and this is also my personal experience of like over and over and over getting the message that you are too distracted, you are giving too much power, personally for me, giving too much power to what's going on around me, like as you know, it's been the story with Aaron and I, like first like being in Mexico at the beginning of the year and being impacted by everything that was going on here, or not necessarily in our proximity, but in our lives, but people being not physically here, then moving to Europe, same thing, you know, like you continuously in a relational dynamic with everything, whether you know it's a place you live, your neighborhood, your work, your friends, your family, or the world in itself. So this year really was to show us or teach us, or at least point us towards like how really important it is to be able to center ourselves and find that 0 point, that infinity point, the opportunity to create a different expression by taking all our energy and all our focus from the external and everything we are continuously in relation with to the internal, and there has to be a balance. Obviously you are not here to spend your whole life in meditation and just checked out. Like, no, there has to be a balance, because you are still a spirit wanting to have a human experience. If you just wanted to have a spiritual expression in a physical form, then I mean that used to be the times for that, but I don't think now is necessarily the time, not for many. Maybe there are some that this is how they hold the space, hold the grid, hold the like frequency for the planet. So I'm sure there are beings in the world in a human form that's exactly what they came here for, to spend a whole life in meditation to hold that frequency for the rest of us, but it's not majority. It's not majority of human population. So that's why this year, with all of these things resurfacing for Iron Eye, you know, all the unresolved things from the past we were hiding under the carpet, like, oh yeah, I don't have to deal with that, I don't need to deal with that. And now everything is bombarding us all at once, because everything that's unresolved, especially the closer we get to the final trimester of Pisces North Node and Virgo South Node, once they get past the 10-degree point and into the 9 and 8 and stuff, then it really, like, I mean, Pisces, so it's got Cancer, Scorpio, yeah, that will be the Scorpionic and Virgo, Capricorn, and Taurus, yeah, exactly, the Scorpio, Taurus, so that we will have the fixed expression of these signs, which will be like, and that's this spring, you know, that's the eclipse times, the eclipse season, when we really will have to start releasing these things, transforming, just like Aaron was saying, like coming into the transmutation of these energies that we've been dug out, like that's been, well, we might have not even been consciously wanting to excavate them and dig them out. They just, you know, they just come in. They just come in. Ready or not, they come in. You know, the energy is ripe, they come in. So as we are moving towards the end of this 2025, the year number 9, this is an opportunity, as it always is every year, for us to really reflect, like, okay, what was this year about? Like, I know for me, personally, this was one of the most difficult years of my life, but at the same time, one of the most rewarding years of my life, where I had never felt more alive, I had never felt more connected to existence in itself. And there are things that I learned, there are things that I still have to learn, there are things I had to let go of, there are things that I gained. So coming into the closing of this very important year, which is bringing us to that fork in the road of your own life, you have the opportunity to really retrospect and go, what did I learn? What did this year show me? Without, if you can, this is something I'm still working on, struggling with, without judgment and with compassion, because there is, and this is the funny thing about humans, there is so much more that we are alike and that connects us than separates us. Like, we think like, oh, that person is so different from me. But when you really get to, like, as we have done here in a community, we are starting to integrate into men's circles, women's circles, getting together as a group of people for sound healing, this healing, lunation chats, whatever the hell. You really realize how so many of us are going through the same thing. It doesn't necessarily look the same way, it doesn't have to come up through the same dynamics, but the emotions that we process in and the opportunity for expansions are very similar. So this is where, just like Aaron said, you know, like, oh, you think that you are your government, or you are your culture, or you are your religion. No, these are all just icons. These are just all just tools for either connection or separation, but you're not the one that creating or holding the tools, and you don't even know the bloody rules of the game. So why give it so much of our power and time? So really, just to, you know, wrap up my monologue over here, all of this year, with all this energy, old and new, and the streaming of the consciousness of the future timelines at the same time being present, this was a very important year, and it still is, and nothing ever ends. It will just flow into the next one, but will be still present because it's your life and it's a continuum, whether you are in physical form or not. So this really is a very, like, in a sense, blessed time to be alive, even though it doesn't really feel like it right now, because everything that is no longer working for us as human individuals or a collective can change, and we can change it. We have the power and the tools to change it. It's just to step into the authority.
Yeah, like you said, the choices I personally made this year will at least continue on for the next 12 years. You know, the choices I made for myself in relation to those I care about, and even the people I don't truly care about. You know, these choices will move on for the next 12 years. And they will continue to mature and grow and inform me and inform others. And it's a learning process. You do the best you can when you're aware that it's within your capacity to do that. And when you're in the emotional throes, you're not always aware of doing the best for yourself or others. And that's how you dig holes, and that's okay, because that's what gives you the sense that, okay, I need to start climbing up, or I'm running out of air, I got to start heading to the surface here. So it's just a process of in and out, breathing, cycle into life, meaning into life, you know. In a lot of life, I've been saying for the past few years, it's the death of absolution. You know, is how much of yourself have you given to something that was not true, which was true for a moment in time when you had less vision to see beyond it? You know, when you're in the shadow, you don't see the light, but you know it's there, otherwise there'd be no shadow. So there's this knower-thinker thing happening. Those that know, know, and they find the information, the knowledge, the symbols to show them that what they know is true. And if you put too much emphasis in the think, then you get led. You know, we've seen that time and time again. Just read history and you'll know. Just look at your parents, just go into Normieville for a while and you'll see it. And I'm not saying it's bad to be in Normieville, it's a process, but once you realize that it's not for your benefit and it's not for your good, then you got to get out. Okay, and that's where a lot of people are going to be at the end of this zodiacal year. When we get through Pisces and into the new astrological year back into Aries. And that's when that fire horse energy will come online. It will show you what you've been pulling through this shedding process. And it will help us to use that to fuel us forward. And you're not forgetting anything of the past or anyone that's mattered. Anyone that you've met has given you great gifts, whether they're your friend or your enemy. So it's about recognizing processes and how you can utilize your consciousness to mature, cultivate the statics of the past into dynamics of this here now. If you can get into the dynamic flow of this moment, you don't have to think of the future. You don't have to worry about the future. And in fact, that's our natural state. If you're thinking or worrying about the future, you're pushing replication. That's why it hurts. That's why it feels, that's why the emotions are bound to that. And so these symbols of the time and the languages which are coming to you, if it's a new language or a new perspective, continue to give it life. Let it breathe. Speak it out. Share that information. If you feel in a different zone or a different frame of being, just digest it. You know, let it become the gnosis which drives you. Because it is true, those that speak do not know, and those that know do not speak. But that doesn't mean it's bad to speak, or that the ignorant are the wise. It just means that we're learning, we're sharing, we're growing, and we're all in this together. So be proud of the past, but don't let that pride bind you to any static convictions. You know, realize there's a gift in life. It's not just a curse. And it's the process that gives us the reason for any kind of meaning that we can bring into existence, that we can compassionate into being. And we can live that in this life.
Yeah, because many times we're learning about what we want through the unwanted, through the contrast, because when you come into physical reality, right, as a baby, like you don't know, like it's all out there, right? Like you don't know what is your preference, you know, the baby doesn't know, like, oh yeah, this is gonna be my favorite food or my favorite color, or I'm gonna have an intolerance towards this type of food group or whatever. Doesn't know, right? So it's like everything that we go through in life offers us either opportunity for like, oh yeah, I'm in resonance with this, or no, this is a contrast, this is something that I don't actually enjoy, and then I go and look for something else, right? And that's life in itself, it's the unfolding. So yeah, just like Aaron said, you know, like you have the opportunity to choose based on what you've gone through and what you've experienced. You know, this is not just 2025, this is like everything that came before, because the South Node in Virgo is saying everything that's ever been in a form on this planet, right? It is not just this year alone, but this year obviously is the year associated with Virgo, which is number 9 in the major arcana, the Hermit, and South Node is in Virgo. So I mean, everything is just perfect, isn't it? Like how the universe is communicating through symbols continuously. But yeah, you know, even like what Aaron was saying about the normie wheel, and I know this could be a trigger point for many people, because many people feel, well, I don't have a choice, you know, I have kids, I need to pay bills, you know, easy for you to say or whatever. And I mean, it's not really easy for anyone, because nobody really knows what anybody else is going through. You're not walking somebody else's shoes. So that's why, like, trying to look at somebody else's life and think, oh, that person has it easy, and it's easy for them to say, you don't know, you know, I don't know, nobody really knows. What we know, oh, I don't even know what Aaron is exactly going through, you know, he's living his own experience. All I know is my experience, like, because we all living in our little universes, right? And then connecting with other people and their universes. So going back to the normie wheel thing, like, yeah, many people feel like, well, I don't have a choice, you know, this is my life, this is where I'm stuck, right? And this is where I feel like more and more people will start making adjustments. Maybe the adjustments, you know, we even like through our clients, connecting to people who are obviously on the same, you know, frequency, you can say, going through similar things, you know, big life-changing experiences and going through their own process. And yeah, there are many people that I've connected with that say, well, I know what is not the right thing for me, and I already can vision and imagine myself without this person or thing or job or anything in my life, but it's not the right time yet. You know, it's a process, like just like Aaron said, sometimes you have to go all the way through, sometimes you have to go to the bottom of that experience to rise again and to transcend that experience. So you might think like, okay, well, shit, I want to live in a mountain, or, you know, I don't want to have to go to the office every day, or whatever it is that, you know, you are no longer enjoying in your life, which once upon a time was the dream. But maybe it's not the right time, you know, but it's all about that intention and in a sense, dedication to yourself, dedication to your dream, you know, like don't, and I mentioned it in my, I don't know if it was the Sag or the Gemini video, I mentioned it where I said that don't allow anybody to steal your dream, not even your own ego self that tries to talk you out of it and say, why is it not possible? I think it was the Sag New Moon. So yeah, don't allow anybody to steal your dreams, you know, like, just like yesterday, I went to the women's circle, and the lady that guided the session, our shaman friend, she was playing a song in Spanish, which I didn't fully understand, but it was about the hummingbird and how we know from, well, I mean, we don't know, but you know, many of the people that say about like the spiritual symbol or spiritual meaning of an animal, and usually colibri, hummingbird is associated with like enjoy the sweetness of life, enjoy the sweetness of the present moment. The hummingbird with his long thing, it doesn't think like, oh shit, you know, look at all these 50 flowers around me, he's so like infused in that flower that he's inside of, right? So it's like that, like we came here, and that's what the song I was being told in essence is about, that yeah, you know, there are things happening in the world, and a lot of the things are not pleasant, a lot of the things are the contrast, but you know, the right here and now, you know, here is my flower, you know, this is my moment of enjoyment or whatever, and I, you know, I've been the advocate of that since I was born, since I was a child, always getting into argument with adults saying that I didn't come here to sacrifice, I came here to have a good life, you know, and like, well, you have to get a proper job, and I'm like, what do you mean proper job? You know, I didn't come here to work, I didn't come here to spend my life working, I didn't come here to live to work, I came here to enjoy life. And for many people, that's like, well, that all sounds good, you know, that sounds like a La La Land, like a Peter Pan story. But actually, who said that it was the other way? Who said that no, we came here to work and be a slave and, you know, like be responsible adults, and this is what it looks like. So that's what I mean, going back to the hummingbird. I am the advocate of, you didn't come here to suffer, you didn't come here to sacrifice, you know. There's the memory and the remembrance of the Piscean age that we all embodied, every single one of us, you know, especially Scorpio and Libra and above generations. We all have the memory of that, what it feels like to live life of sacrifice and victimhood, or being that bad guy if you do something for yourself and then feeling guilty because you put your needs above someone else. We all have that memory, right? So yeah, so this is the life where you came here to go beyond that, to transcend that, because as my parents say, well, we just want better life for you than we had, but then they will tell me exactly how to do it, which is obviously how they did it. So it's not gonna get me any further than that, which is no judgment to anyone. It's just like, well, I wanna go somewhere different and I have to figure it out myself, because you can only take me as far as you've gone, right? So with the suffering, sacrifice and all that, you know, you as a hummingbird, you came here to enjoy your own flower. So you don't have to go and look at somebody else's and whether they're enjoying theirs. It's nice to know, isn't it? It's nice to know. We like to commiserate and collaborate and also share happiness and stuff. But this, again, going back to the Hermit and the Virgo, this was a year for us to realize that, well, you know, because Virgo trines Capricorn and Taurus, what do I want? And even if I figured it out from, you know, the experience that showed me what I don't have, and I want it, and I like it, and I enjoy it, then how do I get to it? You know, so yeah, going all the way back to the Normie question, if you feel like I don't have a choice, and I'm stuck here, and easy for you to say, how can you still bring that moment of happiness into your everyday experience, little by little, and then eventually your life will change. I don't know how. I don't know how my life's gonna change. You know, nobody really knows, because we're stepping into uncharted territory of Aries, Gemini, and Aquarius. I mean, go figure. This is all a new direction, new timelines that goes beyond everything that is known to humanity. But each of us is the creator of our reality, consciously or unconsciously, and if I don't make any effort to make changes in my everyday life, Virgo, then nobody else will. Whether you're in Normie or on the, you know, top of Mount Shasta, it doesn't matter. You are the only one who can make these choices.
Yeah. Yeah, and in a way we are all Calibri in the psychic biome, which is a cocoon, children dancing around the polis, and that becomes a realization that I call Normieville. You know, when you're awakening from your automatic processes and an over-identification with your role. You know, because we are locked into these models of existence which need to take away the instability and the chaos of nature and life in order to provide an outcome. Something we can all come to as a source of safety and security. But there comes a time when you realize your safety and security is devouring your soul. You know, and I don't know how to say it for anyone else. I'm still trying to figure out how to exist in this world without the binds to Normieville, you know. Because everything you do in this world needs to have a balanced reciprocation in an energetic exchange. So, you know, if you're drinking from a poisoned well, you know, you got to figure out, well, what are the antidotes in life? What plant medicines? What medicines in general can I do to counterbalance this? Because everything in life is natural. We are of nature. Everything we create, good and bad, is nature. So it's about realizing, you know, how can I do less that binds me to a static and more which allows me to be free and in my true spirit. Because we are all here for ourselves, but we're here for one another just as much, at least 50%. I'm not going to say it's more than 50, but at times, you know, you got to be more for yourself, and at times you give more. And it just depends on what cycles you're in, what you're trying to accomplish, what you're doing in this world, consciously or not. And so in these times when we find ourselves bound to convictions, we got to pay the bills, we got these medical issues, we've got these psychological issues, we have these statics that we're trying to shake free of or transform through our actions. That's when we have to compassionate ourselves. We have to give ourselves more love. We have to step back from the mind and fall into this body. What nourishes my spirit? What can I do every day that makes me feel a little better? How do I do that which is joyful to become more joyful? And when you do that, everything you do, from the little to the great, has more joy in it. You know, you're putting that energy, that spirit into life. And I feel like when you can do things which are more in an expanded energy, like a Jupiterian energy, that's when you're breaking the Saturnian bind and you're starting to, it's like a bubble at the bottom of the lake. You know, it's in the soil and it breaks free, you know, and you're starting to climb up. And it might not be a quick rise, but just doing that a little bit is beneficial for you and others. You know, you lead by example, whether you know it or not. And others are too, so remember that.
Yeah, and that's like the bridging of the norm evil with regards to where do you live, how do you live, what's your job and stuff, which are all just the labels and the manifestations to is the consciousness, right? Like norm evil, aka like the consciousness of being, which is they call it the mass consciousness. You know, we all programmed to do the same thing, believe the same thing, respond in the same way based on your group, right? To break out of that group, break out of that pattern consciously, you know, with your like mind. I don't know if it's even a mind, but like become more conscious about your life and how you interacting with it. So it's like you can still do everything that you've done with regards to your everyday reality, but the way you perceive it and interact with it is different. And just like Aaron said, somebody once said that, oh, I'm too tired to go to gym, and then they say, well, that's exactly where you need to go. Or I'm too busy to meditate, and they say, okay, you have to meditate, and you know, like instead of 5 minutes, you have to meditate for half an hour, because if you have too much going on to meditate, then that's when you need it the most. So this is again like where we feel like, well, I don't have time to do that, or I can't do that, or something, and that's usually, you know, what we need to do, or where we need to focus on, just like, well, I need to take care of all these people in my life, blah, blah, blah. I don't have time to take care for myself. Because you need to take care of all these people is paramount for you to take care of yourself. Because if you don't, then you can't really, you have nothing to give, right? Like you can give less time, but if you are a higher frequency, so for example, if you take care of yourself, so okay, I'm gonna take extra half an hour for me because I feel depleted. Then if I spend 10 minutes with you, but I'm high vibe and I can help you, then that does more for you than if I'm running on empty, I'm miserable, I had a shit day, but oh, I need to go and take care of you for 2 hours, but actually I have nothing to give. So the 10 minutes will be more beneficial to person than 2 hours of me just dragging my despair and upset. But obviously, you know, like nothing is just, you know, cookie cut and simple. But yeah, just like Aaron said, you know, like it's important to see where, yes, we've been all playing small and trying to fit into the costume that no longer fits because you're no longer 5 years old. And then what do I need to support myself through this process that we all going through? Because this is a collective energy, Virgo Pisces, this is a collective energy. We are all going through this huge process of recalibration and transformation, moving through the one way of being and experience reality to another. And this is a huge thing. This is not just like, oh yeah, I'm changing job. Well, maybe that's part of it, but it's much bigger than that, you know. That could be one of the manifestations. So that's why it's very important to, just like with the Hermit, you know, have the opportunity to go within, connect with yourself, with your body, because it's a earth energy, to what do I need, where am I, how do I feel, you know, because most of the time we live in our head, in our schedules, and we even forget to check with myself, well, how do I feel today, what do I have going on, what is my body feeling. So I feel that this also is yet another layer that we've been learning throughout this year of 2025.
Yeah, well said. And one way to understand where you're at, because I'm not aware I'm upset a lot of times. I'm just running on this spirit, and I realize it through my interactions with other people. But another way I've learned that is when I make a mistake, what arises for me? If there's this anger or disappointment about making a mistake, then I haven't given myself enough time. When you realize in life you don't have to be right all the time, only when it matters, that's when you have this easiness and a gentleness in your spirit, when you're knowing that, okay, mistakes are part of the game. We need the ignorance in order to learn. So how can I recognize that in real time? So just when you make mistakes, if you get upset, if you get really down about it, you got to give yourself some more time. You have to give yourself some compassion. You have to learn that there is more to life than an ideal, than the obligation, than the expectation. That's a model and that's a guide, but it's not the end of the session. It's not the pinnacle of the school, of the lesson. It's a teacher. So try and be a gentle teacher on yourself. Coach yourself, be your own mentor, be your own guru, and you don't need the language of the mystics. You don't need the groupthink iconic thought police to give you the process, the practice, the theorem. You just take what is right with you through your feelings. Get in tune with your emotions. Try and understand that you're dissecting, you're digesting a language, an ancient language within you that only you can process. And when you see information or hear ideas which resonate, that's your cue. It's like, okay, that resonates, I'm going to move along with that. But don't let the ideas of other people be the litmus test, be the marker from which you have to reach. That might be the truth for them, but it doesn't need to be the truth for you or I or anyone else. So be gentle.
Yeah, I feel like, I think it was Lee Harris that said in the recent channelings I listened to that, well, just look around yourself. Does this world look perfect to you? That we all have this a weight of I can't make mistake. I need to be perfect. It needs to be just so or something, right? That's the Virgo in the lower vibration of its expression when it's learning. And it really is a good point, right? Just look at the world around you, look at everything. Everybody's just trying their best. Well, some people trying, some people, are just too tired to keep trying, but we all do the best we can with what we got available at any present moment, and if sometimes it means that, well, I can't do anything because I just don't have it in me, then that's your best, okay? You're still breathing, that's your best. So that's what I mean, be so hard on ourselves, and it really also is important to just give ourselves a little bit of a reality check, look at the state of everything, does it look perfect to you? Does it look like this is a perfect world and everybody is excelling at everything? I don't know. And this is not about comparison or judgment, it's just to, release a little bit of the pressure we all put on ourselves. And I know for me, one of the things that's been very prominently showing up was the patience. Patience, divine timing, everything is in process, and we maneuver in huge energies that are shifting for good. They're shifting for, we don't know what they're shifting to, and they will keep shifting, but they're shifting from what they were for good. They're not gonna go back there to Piscean age, not for a very long time. So I feel that, just as a kind of final closing thoughts on 2025, it was an interesting year to say the least, and it was definitely a year of great teaching, or many opportunities for teaching. The lessons will be obviously learned over the next periods of times, just like Aaron said, maybe for 9 years, maybe for 12, maybe for another 19, until the North Node goes back to Pisces again, right? By which point Pluto will be pretty much done with Aquarius almost. So there is a lot going on, there is a lot going on, so just cut yourself slack And and like I said, we will piggyback on this in the next video, but 2026 is a complete reset year. We're gonna have all these new energies present, which once again we'll dive deeper next time. But it is the year number 10, which is the Wheel of Fortune. The destiny is guiding us and navigating us, that there are things that are not in our control. Yeah, we agreed to, but things are happening, and they're happening now, and they're happening now because now is the time for them to be happening. So with the 0 and the 1 being the Fool and the Magician, where do I want to go from here? You know, I've gone through the 9, you know, that was my initiation through closing with the Mars. And where do I want to go from here? And and I actually wanted to, you know, like quickly jump onto your new service that you offering, because that might be very helpful to people.
Yeah. So in these times, as always, you know, living from the center, from yourself, or a sense of self is paramount. You don't really need all the language of astrology or the impulse of the information. All you need is to understand where you are at any given time and make decisions from that. So a sense of self is key. So I offer a new service here, and it's mostly about getting in alignment with yourself. So it's a modality that I created, just came up with, throwing a bunch of different tools together to help you get your energy in alignment. And this is based off the chakra system. It's based off the transits. It's based off your psychological makeup through reading astrology, your chart, and the numerology of your natal makeup and what's going on around us. And I combine that with some intuitive impulses and just a sense of where you are and what you're trying to accomplish in this world. So it's about aligning your energy in a way where you are moving from your center outward, rather than just taking in information and trying to fit into this world. It's where you're bringing yourself into reciprocity with existence. So it's an energetic alignment type of reading. And as all readings, it's for your dynamic life. So you just take the information and you roll with it. You know, it's about figuring out your language and keeping that growing. Using that as one of the core tenets for how you experience life, is not to be bound to information or prognosis, but to continue growing with it and see where it leads you.
Yeah, and as I mentioned, there is that Christmas sale going on at the moment. So if you would like to take advantage to have this new offering at a discounted price, to check it out. Obviously, it's a continuous, you know, it's something you can have once in a while. It's something you can have regularly, depending where you at and what you're working on. For Aaron to support you through different modalities, like it's human design, I Ching.
Yeah, human design, I Ching, astrology, numerology, tarot, any types of occult type systems that we can utilize. I mean, psychology as well, Jungian psychology, dream analysis, and everyone here on Earth is psychic. You know, we have this unconscious language. So it's just what comes to you in the moment. You don't have to be right all the time, only when it matters. You know, it's like when you're hungry, that's when you eat. So it's just the information comes when you need it.
And also, right is kind of like a little bit of a paradoxical thing sometimes, because, you know, like sometimes you think you're right, and, you know, it turns out that you were not, and sometimes you think you were wrong, but actually it leads you to things that are right. Just like Aaron said, you're doing the right thing for wrong reasons or wrong thing for right reason. It doesn't matter, it's all life. But also the last thing I wanted to mention about the service is that it's preferable for you to know the time of birth, but you don't need to, because a lot of people I know, for evolutionary astrology reading especially, it is important for you to know your time of birth because of how the houses are cut and stuff. But for this reading, the energetical alignment with Aaron, you don't actually have to know your time of birth. So if this is something that's being kind of feeling restrictive for you and why you were prevented having any kind of readings or stuff, then this is a service that definitely could benefit you, and you don't need to know your time of birth.
Yeah, it will benefit you as much if you know as if you don't, because it's about the living process and your energies in motion.
Exactly.
So it's just Hermetic, understanding Hermetic language for yourself and how you can apply that into your daily life consciously.
Yeah, and also, as I mentioned at the beginning, if you want any of my services, but if you want them with Aaron, and also the other thing that Aaron offers and I don't is astrocartography, because that's not something I can do. Relocated chart, but I don't do astrocartography, but Aaron can do that. So this is again where you can find more information on my website, and if you would like any service to actually experience it through the lens of Aaron's approach towards astrology, which as you can see is different. If this resonates with you, then definitely get in touch. And I think that's a good wrap up for this one.
Yeah, that's our breakdown for this past 2025 year, and hopefully it was good for you. If it wasn't a good experience, you're probably going to be realizing what you learned over the next year or two.
Yeah, especially with the North Node in Aquarius, we're all going to be
yeah.
parachuted into a new horizons for sure.
And that's perfect, because we're going from 9 back to 10-1, which is essentially the unconscious Virgo becoming an Aquarius. So that's what we're heading into here.
There we go. And Jupiter in Leo is going to help us to make sense of it.
Yes, exactly.
All right. So thank you everyone for your time, if you're still here with us. And yeah, I hope that something that we shared helped to shine some light onto your experience and what you've been going through throughout this crazy year of 9 energy, right? And yeah, we'll see you in the next one for our little musings about 2026 and the energies that might be affecting us individually and collectively, because it is a huge year for all of that.
Yes. Yeah. Thanks for watching, listening, and being, and take care, everyone.